The sun was setting over the small town of Cedar Falls, Oregon, bathing the quiet street in a gentle orange glow, that rare stillness only the American West seemed to know. Inside a patrol car, Officer Daniel Brooks sat silently, one hand resting lightly on the steering wheel, eyes fixed on the windshield touched by the last rays of daylight. He'd grown used to evenings like this, calm, uneventful, no calls, no sirens. For him, peace was sometimes the most significant reward after a long day. The clock read 6:42 p.m. Porch lights flickered on along the street. A dog barked in the distance. The police radio crackled once, then fell quiet again. Daniel exhaled softly. He'd once been a firefighter before joining the police force. He had lost his wife years ago in an accident, and had since learned to keep his heart steady, even amid emptiness. But then, through that perfect silence, a sound broke the air. A cry, high, trembling, desperate. He looked up. Down the street, a little girl, no more than 6, came running from the corner. Barefoot, tangled blonde hair, a faded floral dress streaked with dust. Tears streamed down her smudged cheeks, and those terrified eyes went straight to his heart.
"Mister, please, come with me. Home."
Her words came in gasps, shaking. Daniel immediately opened the car door, stepped out, and crouched down to her level. He gently touched her shoulder, his voice low and calm. "It's okay. Take a breath. What's your name, sweetheart?" The girl shook her head, choking back her tears, and gripped his hand tightly.
"My mom. She won't wake up. Please come with me."
Just one sentence, and a chill ran down Daniel's spine. This wasn't a cry of fear. It was a plea for help, from a soul too small to carry it alone. He turned back, switched off the engine, locked the car, and took her tiny hand in his. No more questions, no hesitation. They began to run through the fading light of day. Above them, the last streaks of sunlight slipped beyond the horizon, and in his mind, 2 figures, one tall, one small, ran through the fading light of dusk. Little Lily Carter clutched Officer Daniel Brooks's hand tightly, pulling him across the narrow, leaf-strewn streets of Cedar Oaks, where flickering streetlights cast trembling shadows on rows of rusted iron fences. No one spoke. Only the sound of hurried footsteps mingled with the whisper of dry leaves. From time to time, the girl glanced back, tears glinting in the dim light.
"Hurry, mister. My mom. She's not breathing."
Daniel could feel the small hand trembling inside his. Each time she spoke, his heart pounded faster. He had seen countless emergencies, accidents, fires, even desperate 911 calls, but never had his chest tightened quite like this. Maybe because she was so little, or maybe because there was something in her voice, something painfully familiar. The tone of someone terrified of losing the person they loved most. They turned into a narrow alley, lined with old wooden houses pressed close together, paint peeling, walls weathered by years of rain and time. A few windows were still lit, but no one looked out. Only silence. That strange kind of silence that made Daniel's stomach knot. He spoke softly, steadying his voice. "Are we almost there, Lily?" The girl pointed ahead without stopping.
"There, that's my house, right there."
Daniel followed her gaze. A small house, half hidden behind a patch of wild shrubs, stood at the end of the street. A torn curtain fluttered in the breeze. On the porch lay a broken doll, face down, its paint chipped and cracked like time. He slowed his pace, a heavy weight pressing against his chest. The lights inside were out, and the front door was slightly ajar. A chill wind slipped through, carrying the scent of damp grass and distant wood smoke. The girl suddenly stopped, gripping his hand tighter.
My mom's inside.
Her voice broke, now barely more than a trembling whisper. Daniel crouched down, looking straight into her eyes. In that instant, he wasn't a police officer, just a man standing on the edge between life and faith. He nodded gently. You did great, Lily. Now let me handle this. The wooden door creaked open, revealing a thick, suffocating darkness inside. Officer Daniel Brooks stood still on the threshold, feeling like he had just crossed the line between peace and despair. The air was heavy, damp, tinged with the smell of medicine and cold leftovers. Under the faint sliver of light spilling in from the yard, everything appeared messy, frozen in eerie silence. A dinner table with half-opened noodle cups, unpaid bills stacked high, and a woman's coat draped loosely over a chair as if its owner had left for just a moment and never returned. Lily stepped in first, her dusty little feet creaking softly against the wooden floor. She held his hand tight and whispered, My mom, she's in that room. Daniel nodded, moving carefully. The beam from his shoulder flashlight swept across the wall, catching old picture frames. A young woman holding a smiling little girl beneath blooming cherry blossoms. Now those same two faces were separated by the thin, fragile line between life and death. He gently pushed open the bedroom door. A rush of cold air met him. On the old bed lay a young woman, Hannah Carter, 27. Her face was pale, her lips cracked, and her hand was limp over the blanket.
Mommy, wake up, please.
Lily's voice broke, half sob, half tremor. Daniel moved quickly, kneeling beside the bed. Instinct and training took over. He touched her wrist, a faint pulse, weak but there. A shallow breath. She was alive. He pulled out his phone and called for help. Dispatch, this is Officer Brooks at 214 Cedar Oaks. Female, mid-20s, unconscious, shallow breathing. Request immediate medical assistance. Once the operator confirmed, he turned to Lily, his voice soft and steady. She's still breathing, Lily. She's going to be okay. I promise. The girl nodded, tears streaming down her cheeks. She sat down, gripping her mother's frail hand, trembling but determined. For a moment, Daniel's chest tightened painfully. That image, a child clinging to her mother's hand, brought back a memory. As the paramedics wheeled the stretcher toward the ambulance, Lily clung desperately to her mother's hand, her tiny feet stumbling to keep up. Her voice broke between shallow breaths.
I'm not letting Mommy go alone.
Officer Daniel Brooks bent down and gently lifted her into his arms. He could feel her trembling breath against his uniform, and a single tear falling onto his shoulder. Hey, listen to me. Your mom's still breathing. They're going to help her. But you need to stay calm, okay? The little girl nodded faintly, tears still glistening on her cheeks. The red and blue lights from the ambulance reflected in her eyes, wide, frightened, and far too grown up for a 6-year-old. Daniel sat in the back with Lily on the way to the hospital. His hand rested lightly on her back, just enough to say, "You're not alone." Her voice came out small, shaking like the wind.
Mommy's been sick for days. She keeps coughing. I made her water, but she couldn't drink it.
Daniel listened silently. She continued, each word cutting like a small knife to the heart.
Yesterday, Mommy sat on the bed and tried to eat. She said, As long as you sleep well, that's enough for me. But this morning, she didn't talk anymore. I waited all day until it got dark. I was scared she'd go away, like Daddy.
Daniel turned to her. Your dad? Lily lowered her head.
He left when I was little. It's just Mommy and me. She works a lot. I don't want her to be tired anymore.
Her voice broke, so soft it was as if she feared the sound might wake her mother. Daniel drew in a deep breath and looked out the window. Outside, the night had settled over the town. Street lights blurred in the fine mist of rain. He saw a reflection of himself 10 years ago, the child within him who hadn't been able to save the person he loved. Then Lily whispered again.
I didn't know what to do, so I ran outside. Mommy once told me, if you're ever in danger, find a police officer. So I ran.
Badges, only the heart of a child. St. Mary's Regional Hospital, 9 p.m. The hallway gleamed under harsh neon light, so white it seemed to wash the color out of every shadow. Outside the emergency room, Lily sat curled up on a blue plastic chair clutching her old doll, the only thing she had brought. Officer Daniel Brooks stood a few steps away, arms crossed, eyes fixed through the fogged glass window. Inside, doctors and nurses moved quickly around the hospital bed. IV lines, oxygen tubes, and the rhythmic beeping of machines intertwining like the pulse of his own heart. He had witnessed scenes like this countless times before, but this one felt different, because the woman lying inside wasn't just another stranger. She was the young mother whose entire world waited just beyond that door. The door swung open, and a doctor stepped out, pulling off her mask. Daniel immediately approached. How is she? The doctor exhaled softly, shaking her head slightly, but with a faint, reassuring smile. She's alive. Very weak, though. Severe exhaustion, dehydration, and pneumonia. She hasn't eaten in days. We'll need to keep her under observation. Daniel nodded. For a moment his eyes brightened, then dimmed again, caught between relief and heaviness. He looked down at Lily. The little girl was staring up at him, hope trembling in her gaze. He knelt and spoke softly. Your mom's still here, Lily. The doctors are helping her. You saved her. Her eyes widened, and a small smile appeared on her lips for the first time since he'd met her. Tired but bright, like sunlight breaking through clouds. They sat together in the hallway, under the pale hospital lights reflecting off the sterile white walls. Time seemed to pause between them. A lonely officer and a child who had just faced the greatest fear of her life. Daniel removed his cap, set it beside him, and sat on the bench. The hallway stretched on, quiet, empty, filled only with the air conditioner's hum and distant footsteps. He asked gently, Lily, did you eat anything today? She shook her head.
I only drank some water.
He walked to the vending machine, bought 2 snack bars and a bottle of orange juice, then returned and handed now, but we'll need someone to sign for overnight observation. Daniel nodded, took the paper and signed without hesitation. He wasn't family, but sometimes compassion is all the permission you need. That night he didn't leave the hospital. He sat there, watching Lily drift into sleep beside him, her head resting against his arm. Outside the window, the season's first snow began to fall softly over the hospital roof. Streetlights reflected the flakes, scattering tiny sparks of silver light across the glass. And within him, a quiet feeling spread, not exhaustion, but the stillness when you know you've done something right. The next morning, Soft daylight filtered through the hospital window, spilling across the seats where Officer Daniel Brooks still sat, exactly as he had through the night. Lily Carter slept soundly on his shoulder, her head resting against his uniform sleeve, still dusted with yesterday's road grit. He watched her for a long moment, then gently pulled his jacket to cover her small shoulders. His lips curved into a faint smile, though his eyes carried something quieter, tender sorrow. A nurse approached softly.
Miss Hannah is out of danger. She's awake now. She's asking for her daughter.
Daniel nodded. He leaned down and touched Lily's shoulder gently.
Hey, sweetheart, wake up. Your mom wants to see you.
The girl blinked, dazed for a moment, then shot up, following the nurse down the hall. Daniel walked behind them slowly and stopped at the doorway. Inside, Hannah Carter rested against a pillow, her face pale but her eyes alive again. When she saw her daughter, tears spilled instantly. Lily ran into her arms, sobbing in relief. Their embrace filled the small room, fragile, human, whole. Daniel stood quietly, not stepping in, just smiling faintly. That sight, a frail mother holding her child after fighting back from the edge, made his heart tremble in a peace he hadn't felt in years. When the nurse left, Hannah looked up at him. Her voice was weak and raspy.
You're the one who saved us, aren't you?
Daniel's reply came low and gentle. No, it was your daughter who saved you. I just did my small part. Tears rolled down Hannah's cheeks. Through shallow breaths, she whispered,
If you hadn't come, I wouldn't be here. Thank you so much.
Daniel smiled, though his gaze turned distant. He felt her gratitude, but he also knew the truth was bigger than that. He glanced around the room, peeling paint, wilted flowers, worn-out bags, and a few medical bills stacked on the table. A young mother fighting not just illness, but life itself. That afternoon, when Daniel finally left any order or badge, he would not let that mother and child face the world alone again. A few days after Hannah Carter was discharged from the hospital, the first winter snow had nearly melted away. On the streets of Cedar Falls, sparrows returned to perch on power lines, and sunlight glimmered off old window panes. Life seemed to go on as usual, but inside Officer Daniel Brooks, something had quietly changed. He began to act. No speeches, no announcements. Just small calls, brief messages, and a few simple words in the police station's meeting room. There's a mother and daughter in Cedar Oaks who need help. We can do something, even if it's just a little. The first colleague placed a grocery gift card on the table. The second added a small envelope. The third brought milk, bread, and gently used clothes. And the story began to spread. Before long, the entire small town joined in. A local store owner offered weekly groceries. A group of college students came to clean and repaint the walls. An electrician fixed the broken outlets, and a seamstress made Lily a new turquoise dress, just like the one she'd worn the night she ran for help. Daniel didn't say much. He simply stood aside, watching everyone work. There was something in their eyes that eased his heart. They weren't there out of pity. They came because they wanted to be part of something right. That afternoon, when Hannah and Lily returned home after days in recovery, they paused on the familiar path. The little house at 214 Cedar Oaks looked completely different. Freshly painted walls, clean steps, windows wide open to the sun. The fridge was stocked with food in the kitchen, and a vase of fresh flowers sat on the table. Beside it, a handwritten note in pencil read, "Welcome home, Hannah and Lily. The Cedar Falls community." Hannah stood frozen, hand covering her mouth. Her thin shoulders trembled, and then she broke into tears. Lily ran through the rooms, laughing and shouting wonderfully as if stepping into a dream. When she turned back, Daniel was standing quietly on the porch. She ran straight into his arms, voice trembling but pure.
"Mister, is this..."
Simple, yet profound. Sometimes, kindness doesn't need to be shouted. It just needs one person to begin, and the world will take care of the rest. 1 month later. Evening settled slowly over Cedar Falls, its light soft and golden, as if woven from the breath of spring itself. The once faded walls were freshly painted along the narrow road leading through Cedar Oaks. Fences stood straight again, and pots of purple flowers bloomed beneath sunlit porches. Officer Daniel Brooks parked at the end of the street. He switched off the engine and stepped out, his boots crunching gently over dry leaves. Ahead, Hannah Carter's home glowed with warm yellow light. The window was slightly open. Laughter and the scent of chicken soup drifted to the porch. Lily Carter was on the swing, rebuilt from the same old wooden plank. Each time she swung upward, her hair caught the light, flying like a ribbon of sunshine cutting through the air. Hannah sat by the fence, chatting with neighbors, her face relaxed, as if debt, fear, and winter had finally lifted from her shoulders. Their laughter mingled with the clinking of porcelain teacups and cheerful voices, together forming the simple, living music this town hadn't heard in a long time. Daniel watched quietly. The evening light glinted off the badge on his shoulder, making it gleam like a gentle reminder. Justice doesn't always live in courtrooms. Sometimes it's found when you stop and listen to a cry for help. He remembered it all. The sobs at sunset, the half-open door, the trembling little hand, and the promise he had made. "I won't let you and your mom be alone again." Now, watching Lily swing beneath the sun, he knew that promise had been kept. Not just by him, but by the entire town. There are days you think you're just doing your job, and then one small cry changes your whole life. Kindness doesn't need recognition. It only needs to be continued. And sometimes, the greatest miracle begins with a child who still believes there are good people in this world. Daniel turned and began walking down the quiet street, his shadow stretching with the fading light. A soft breeze passed, carrying the sound of children's laughter, the chime of wind bells, and the scent of freshly painted wood.